At 65, Colin Firth has finally revealed something that few people expected to hear. Not during a carefully managed interview or while standing in front of flashing cameras, but through the quiet reflections of a man who has spent much of his life hiding behind composure. For decades, audiences knew him as Mr. Darcy, the reserved gentleman who rarely revealed his emotions, and later as King George VI, a man struggling to find his voice. Yet behind those celebrated performances was someone dealing with challenges far more personal than anything written in a screenplay. The question many people now ask is simple. What has Colin Firth finally come to understand about love, life, and himself after all these years? Colin Andrew Firth was born on September 10, 1960, in Hampshire, England. He grew up in an intellectual household where ideas and academic discussions were common. His father taught history, while his mother specialized in comparative religion. Conversations often centered on philosophy, culture, and education rather than emotional expression. As a child, Colin was thoughtful and sensitive. He felt emotions deeply but often struggled to express them. Acting eventually became the outlet he had been searching for. Through performance, he could communicate feelings that were otherwise difficult to put into words. When he attended Drama Centre London, he was not necessarily considered the most naturally gifted student. What set him apart was his ability to communicate emotion through silence. Casting directors noticed a quality that would later define many of his greatest performances: the ability to express vulnerability without saying very much at all. That skill followed him throughout his career. On screen, it became one of his greatest strengths. In his personal life, however, it sometimes made things more complicated. Colin became known as someone who kept his emotions private, even during difficult moments. His breakthrough arrived in 1995 when he starred as Mr. Darcy in the BBC adaptation of Pride and Prejudice. The role transformed him into an international star. Audiences were captivated by his restrained performance, and the famous lake scene quickly became one of television's most memorable moments. Almost overnight, Colin became a symbol of a particular kind of romantic hero: quiet, intelligent, loyal, and emotionally reserved. The character's popularity was enormous, and many people began associating Colin himself with the role. The success continued with the Bridget Jones films, where he played Mark Darcy, another character admired for his patience, loyalty, and calm presence. Once again, audiences fell in love with the image of a dependable man who seemed willing to give everything for the people he loved. But real life is rarely as simple as fiction. By the time Colin won the Academy Award for The King's Speech in 2011, he had become one of the most respected actors in the world. The film told the story of a man learning to overcome personal limitations and find the courage to speak openly. Many viewers admired the performance, unaware of how closely some of its themes reflected struggles Colin understood himself. Long before international fame fully arrived, there was another important chapter in his life. In 1989, while working on the film Valmont, Colin met actress Meg Tilly. Their connection developed quickly, built on mutual respect and genuine affection. Meg had already experienced significant challenges in her life and career, and Colin admired her honesty, strength, and independence. The relationship became serious. In a surprising move, Colin stepped away from much of the Hollywood spotlight and relocated to British Columbia, Canada. Together, they built a quieter life away from fame and media attention. For several years, he focused on family life rather than career ambitions. Their son, Will, was born in 1990, and Colin embraced the responsibilities of fatherhood while helping raise Meg's children as well. Friends and family members later described those years as some of the happiest in his life. Far removed from red carpets and celebrity culture, he experienced a kind of normality that many actors rarely enjoy. Yet life eventually pulled them in different directions. As opportunities continued to emerge in Britain, Colin faced difficult choices about his future. The relationship gradually came to an end in 1994. Although neither publicly discussed every detail, it was clear that the separation affected both of them deeply. Colin returned to England. Soon afterward, Pride and Prejudice changed everything. The actor who had spent years living quietly in Canada suddenly became one of Britain's most admired stars. His career accelerated rapidly, bringing new opportunities, recognition, and public attention. Despite their separation, mutual respect remained between Colin and Meg. Over the years, both spoke positively about the time they had shared together, recognizing its importance in their lives. Then another major relationship entered Colin's story. In 1996, while working on the television production Nostromo in Italy, he met Livia Giugioli. Intelligent, passionate, and deeply committed to environmental causes, she immediately impressed him. Their relationship grew quickly, and in 1997 they married. Together they built a family, welcomed 2 sons, and divided their time between England and Italy. From the outside, they appeared to have created an ideal life. They shared interests, supported charitable causes, and often presented an image of stability and partnership. For many years, Colin seemed completely devoted to both his family and his marriage. As the years passed, Colin and Livia built a life that appeared strong and successful. They raised their children, supported causes they believed in, and maintained homes in both England and Italy. To the public, they looked like one of the entertainment industry's most stable couples. But appearances do not always reveal what is happening beneath the surface. Throughout his life, Colin had developed a habit of putting the needs of others before his own. Friends often described him as generous, loyal, and willing to make sacrifices for the people he loved. Those qualities made him admirable, but they also carried a cost. As his career continued to flourish, he often adapted his life around the needs and priorities of his family. He rarely complained publicly and preferred to keep personal matters private. That privacy helped protect his family from attention, but it also meant that many of his own struggles remained hidden. In 2003, Colin appeared in Love Actually, one of the most beloved romantic comedies of its era. Audiences saw him portray a man willing to cross countries and overcome language barriers for love. While the story was fictional, there was a real-life similarity many people never noticed. Years earlier, Colin had learned Italian to communicate more naturally with Livia and her family. It was one of many examples of the effort he invested in the people closest to him. Love for Colin was rarely about grand speeches. It was usually expressed through commitment, patience, and quiet actions. By 2011, his professional life had reached a new peak. Winning the Academy Award for The King's Speech placed him among the most respected actors of his generation. The achievement represented decades of work, persistence, and dedication. From the outside, everything appeared perfect. Yet even during moments of success, relationships can face challenges that remain invisible to everyone else. Around 2015, Colin and Livia quietly separated for a period of time. Very few people knew about it. Like many couples experiencing difficulties, they attempted to understand whether their marriage could still be repaired. During that separation, Livia became involved with Italian journalist Marco Brancaccia. What initially appeared to be a private situation later became the center of significant public controversy. When Colin and Livia reconciled, the relationship ended. However, the aftermath soon became complicated. Public accusations, legal disputes, and media coverage followed. For a man who valued privacy above almost everything else, the situation was deeply uncomfortable. Colin publicly supported his wife throughout the controversy. He stood beside her during a difficult period and defended her when questions emerged. Later developments created further complications, and the entire situation attracted even more media attention. Headlines appeared across multiple countries, forcing intensely personal matters into the public spotlight. For someone who had spent decades protecting his private life, the experience was painful. Eventually, the strain became impossible to ignore. In December 2019, Colin and Livia announced their separation. After more than 20 years of marriage, their relationship had come to an end. The timing made the transition even more difficult. As the world entered the uncertainty of 2020, Colin found himself facing a completely new chapter of life. His children were adults, his marriage was over, and many of the assumptions that had shaped his adult years were suddenly gone. For the first time in decades, he was being forced to rediscover who he was outside of the roles he had played as husband, father, and public figure. During this period, friendship became especially important. One of the people who remained close to him was actor Stanley Tucci. The two men had known each other for years and shared a genuine friendship built on mutual respect. When Stanley experienced devastating personal loss following the death of his wife, Colin had been there to support him. Now, during one of the most difficult periods of Colin's own life, that support was returned. Their friendship became even more meaningful when they worked together on the film Supernova. The story follows two longtime partners confronting the realities of illness, loss, and the limited time they have left together. It is a deeply emotional film that explores love, grief, and acceptance. Colin's performance received widespread praise. Many viewers felt that he brought an unusual level of vulnerability to the role. Watching him portray a man struggling to let go of someone he loves felt especially powerful because it seemed connected to experiences he understood personally. The project arrived at a moment when Colin himself was dealing with major changes, making the themes of the story resonate even more strongly. A few years later, he took on another challenging role in The Staircase. Rather than playing a straightforward hero, he portrayed a far more complicated and morally ambiguous character. The performance demonstrated his willingness to move beyond the image that had followed him since Pride and Prejudice. Instead of repeating familiar roles, he continued searching for characters that challenged both audiences and himself. It was during this period that another important person entered his life. While working on The Staircase, Colin met writer and producer Maggie Cohn. Intelligent, accomplished, and deeply involved in storytelling, she quickly became someone important to him.